I never imagined the man I called family, my daughter's husband, David, would throw me out on the street, especially not 2 weeks after my own daughter's funeral. But what he didn't know was that justice, much like grief, has a way of finding its own path, and my path was about to become one he never saw coming, leading me from devastating loss to an unexpected strength and the rebuilding of a family I thought was shattered forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My life for 67 years had been one of quiet dedication. I was a widow, a retired school librarian, a keeper of stories, and the fiercely protective mother of my only child, Sarah. Sarah was my world, a bright, compassionate woman who brought immense joy to everyone she met. When she was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, my world stopped. I didn't hesitate for a second. My small, cozy house, the one my late husband and I had built our lives in, went on the market. Every penny from its sale, every cent of my savings, went directly to Sarah's treatments, to give her every possible chance. We fought bravely for 2 long, agonizing years, enduring countless hospital visits, experimental therapies, and the crushing weight of hope and despair. When the time came and Sarah's fight was over, there was nothing left of my material life, but I was where I needed to be, by my daughter's side, holding her hand until her last breath. After the funeral, I moved into Sarah and David's beautiful suburban home, thinking it was a temporary arrangement, a way for us all to grieve together. David, my son-in-law, seemed to be a devoted husband, a loving father to Emma, then 16, and Jake, 13. I truly believed we were a unit, bound by our shared sorrow for Sarah. My role, I thought, was to help ease the burden, cook for the children, take them to school, offer a comforting presence while David navigated his own grief and the demands of his job. I kept the house tidy, ensured meals were on the table, and tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Emma and Jake, who were, naturally, utterly heartbroken. The house, which had once buzzed with Sarah's vibrant energy, now held a heavy silence, broken only by quiet sniffles or the soft clinking of dishes as I tried to keep things going. 2 weeks. Just 2 short weeks after we buried Sarah, after I had poured every last ounce of my emotional strength into being strong for my grandchildren, David called me into the living room. He was dressed impeccably, as always, sipping coffee, his face a mask of what I then mistook for controlled grief, but which I would later recognize as cold calculation. He sat me down on the sofa, the very one where Sarah and I used to curl up and talk for hours. "Maggie," he began, his voice devoid of warmth, "this isn't working out. Your presence here, it's a constant, depressing reminder of Sarah. I need to move on, for the children's sake, and frankly for my own." My heart constricted, a physical pain, sharper even than grief. "But David," I stammered, "where would I go?" "I sold my house. Everything." He cut me off. A dismissive wave of his hand. "That was your choice, Maggie. I can't be responsible for your living arrangements. I need space. You need to find your own way to grieve." His words, so devoid of empathy, so cruel in their timing, echoed in the hollow space where my hope had just been. "I've already packed your things," he added, gesturing to 2 suitcases by the front door. "A cab is on its way." I remember standing there, frozen, watching him, trying to find the man who had once promised to love my daughter forever. He wasn't there. Only a stranger, cold and heartless, who was evicting a 67-year-old widow, his children's only remaining grandmother, with nowhere to go. My grandchildren, Emma and Jake, were at school, spared the sight of their father's callousness, but I knew, deep down, that this wouldn't just be about me. He was cutting me off from them, too. That night, alone in a tiny rented studio apartment above Mrs. Chen's bustling Chinese restaurant, the smell of soy sauce and ginger, a bitter irony to my empty stomach, I felt truly broken. My life, my purpose, my home, my daughter, all gone. I had given everything for Sarah, and in return, I was left homeless, isolated, and grieving not only my child, but the sudden, brutal loss of my grandchildren. I couldn't even call them. David had blocked my number. For weeks, I barely functioned. The walls of that cramped studio closing in on me, mirroring the emptiness in my soul. I missed Emma and Jake terribly. Their laughter, their questions, the simple comfort of their presence. David, I heard through distant whispers from old neighbors, seemed to be moving on just fine, hosting friends, renovating the house, seemingly unburdened by grief or responsibility. Each rumor was a fresh stab, but with each stab, a tiny, hard kernel of something new began to form inside me. The despair was still there, a constant companion, but now a flicker of something else ignited within me, a profound, chilling resolve. I wasn't just a grieving widow anymore. I was a discarded mother and grandmother, and I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I would not stay discarded. I would find a way to reclaim my life and, most importantly, to reclaim my grandchildren. This wasn't about revenge. Not truly, not yet. It was about justice, about restoration, about showing David and myself that I was not to be trifled with. 6 agonizing months passed. 6 months of waking up in that small, echoing room, feeling the ache of loneliness and the silent scream of injustice. I took on odd jobs, anything to keep a roof over my head, but my heart remained heavy with the absence of Emma and Jake. I knew David was deliberately keeping them from me, weaving some narrative to explain my absence, perhaps painting me as the one who abandoned them. It fueled the quiet fire in my belly. My old lawyer, Mr. Harrison, a kind, meticulous man who had handled Sarah's affairs, called me one morning. "Maggie," he said, his voice gentle, "there are a couple of matters we need to address. First, a reading of Sarah's will, and then something quite unexpected regarding your Aunt Rose." My stomach clenched. Sarah's will. This was my chance, perhaps, to see her final wishes. The meeting at Harrison and Associates was surreal. David was there, looking sleek and composed, seemingly thriving. Emma and Jake sat beside him, their faces pale and subdued. I had not seen them in person since Sarah's funeral. My heart ached to embrace them, but David shot me a glare that warned me off. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat and began to read Sarah's will. It was standard for the most part, allocating personal effects. But then came the part about her life insurance. David visibly stiffened, and for her life insurance policy, Mr. Harrison read, Sarah Thompson Mitchell explicitly changed the beneficiary 6 months prior to her passing, ensuring that the full amount of $750,000 be placed in a trust for the sole and direct benefit of her children, Emma and Jacob Mitchell, to be managed by an independent trustee until they reach the age of 25. A gasp escaped David's lips. His composed facade cracked, revealing a flash of pure, unadulterated rage. He had been expecting that money, planning on it. Sarah, my wise, perceptive daughter, had known. She had protected her children, even from the grave, from their own father's avarice. My heart swelled with pride and a bitter sadness for the battles she must have fought, silently, in her final days. David, red-faced and sputtering, demanded an explanation, but Mr. Harrison remained impassive. Miss Mitchell's wishes were clear and legally binding. Just as the tension in the room reached its peak, Mr. Harrison turned to me. "Now, Maggie, we have another matter. Your great-aunt, Rose Aberdeen." My great-aunt Rose. I hadn't seen her in decades. A formidable woman, always impeccably dressed, with a sharp wit and an even sharper eye for injustice. Aunt Rose passed away quietly last month, Mr. Harrison continued, and to everyone's surprise, she left the entirety of her estate, a sum totaling $2.3 million, to you, Maggie. The room went silent. I felt a dizzying surge, a mix of disbelief and overwhelming emotion. Her will specifies, Mr. Harrison continued, and I quote, "to my grandniece, Margaret Maggie Thompson, who sacrificed everything for her beloved daughter Sarah, and who has been so cruelly cast aside by Sarah's widower, David Mitchell. This inheritance is not just for her future, but to even the score, so that Maggie may reclaim her dignity and rebuild what was so unjustly taken. I could feel David's eyes burning holes in me, his mouth agape. The power had shifted. In an instant, my great-aunt from beyond the grave had seen, had known, and had delivered the most astonishing, unexpected justice. Leaving that office, with David fuming behind me and Emma and Jake looking at me with a mixture of confusion and curiosity, I felt a new surge of strength. Aunt Rose's words were a battle cry. I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was armed. My first step was to meet with Mr. Harrison again, this time privately. "Mr. Harrison," I began, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Aunt Rose's will mentioned David's cruelty. She knew. I need to know everything. His financial situation, his assets, his debts, everything. He looked at me, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Maggie, David has always been ambitious, shall we say, and prone to living beyond his means." Over the next few weeks, I worked tirelessly, fueled by a renewed sense of purpose. Mr. Harrison, with his vast network and meticulous approach, began to dig. We discovered David was deeply in debt, his lavish lifestyle far outstripping his income. He had maxed out credit cards, taken out multiple personal loans, and was struggling to keep up with the mortgage on Sarah's house, which was now a shrine to David's carefully curated image of a grieving widower. But the most damning discovery was a series of transfers from Sarah's retirement account, initiated in the months leading up to her death. $60,000, systematically siphoned off. David had been stealing from Sarah from her hard-earned retirement savings, all while she was fighting for her life. He must have intended to repay it with a life insurance payout, which Sarah's foresight had now denied him. I opened new, secure accounts, transferred Aunt Rose's inheritance, and set up a robust financial plan for myself. My days of struggle in the studio above Mrs. Chen's were over. But I wasn't just building my own future. I was strategically laying the groundwork for a confrontation that would not only expose David, but, hopefully, reclaim my grandchildren. I researched everything, from family counseling services to schools in different neighborhoods. My grief hadn't disappeared, but it was now overlaid with a steely determination, a cold, calculated resolve. The opportunity for a direct confrontation presented itself a few weeks later. I invited David to dinner at Giovanni's, an upscale Italian restaurant he frequented, a place he always tried to impress people at. He arrived, radiating an air of superiority, probably assuming I wanted to beg for access to the children, or, worse, for financial help now that he'd heard about Aunt Rose. He ordered an expensive bottle of wine, a smirk playing on his lips. "So, Maggie," he said, leaning back in his chair, "quite the unexpected windfall for you. I suppose you're here to thank me for teaching you the value of independence." His condescension was sickening. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice calm, steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. "David," I began, "I'm here to talk about your debts. The $200,000 in credit card debt, the overdue mortgage payments, the various personal loans that are about to default." His smirk vanished. His face paled. He stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about." I smiled, a cold, humorless smile. "Oh, I think you do. And I think you know exactly what I'm talking about when I mention the $60,000 you stole from Sarah's retirement account, hoping to pay it back with her life insurance policy after she passed. A policy, I might add, she shrewdly changed to protect her children from your greed." The color drained from his face entirely. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. His carefully constructed world was crumbling before his eyes. How did you know?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "It's all documented, David," I said, my voice rising slightly. "All accounted for. You are in a desperate situation, aren't you? A desperate man who evicted his grieving mother-in-law and tried to steal from his dying wife." He slumped back, utterly defeated, his bravado gone. I needed the money," he mumbled, refusing to meet my gaze. Things got out of control. That night was merely the prelude. The real reckoning came a week later, at David's home, the very place he'd thrown me out of. I insisted on a family dinner, inviting Emma and Jake. They looked uncomfortable, unsure of what was happening. David, subdued and nervous, sat across from me. After we finished eating, I looked at Emma and Jake, their young faces etched with grief and confusion. "Emma, Jake," I said, my voice soft but firm, "there's something your father and I need to tell you, something that directly concerns why I haven't been in your lives these past 6 months." David fidgeted, trying to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "David," I said, my gaze unwavering, "tell them." He swallowed hard. "Your grandmother, she decided she needed her own space. She wanted to move on." He began, a pathetic attempt at the old narrative. "That's not true," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "David, you tell them the truth, or I will." He looked from me to his children, seeing the doubt in their eyes. Finally, his shoulders sagged. I asked your grandmother to leave," he admitted, barely above a whisper. I told her she was a reminder of your mother, and then I blocked her number so she couldn't call you." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's eyes, usually so bright, filled with tears. Jake, who usually hid behind his games, looked up, his face a mask of shock and betrayal. You told us Grandma Maggie didn't want to see us," Emma choked out, tears streaming down her face. "You said she just left." David stammered apologies, excuses, but the words were hollow. I then laid out his financial problems, the scale of his debt, and yes, the $60,000 he had taken from their mother's retirement account. I didn't frame it as an attack, but as an undeniable truth, laid bare. "Your father is in deep financial trouble," I explained gently, "and he was hoping to use your mother's life insurance to fix it, which is why your mother, knowing this, changed her will to protect you both." The children were devastated. Betrayal rippled through the room. Emma, ever the more articulate, looked at me through her tears. "Grandma, why didn't you tell us?" I explained my helplessness, my inability to reach them, and the hope I now had to rectify things. "I want to come live with you, Grandma," Emma finally said, her voice trembling but firm. Jake, quieter but just as heartbroken, nodded, tears silently tracking down his face. Me too. It was a moment of profound heartbreak and incredible strength. Their loyalty to their father, however manipulated, had shattered under the weight of his deceit. The fallout was swift and undeniable. David, facing the complete loss of his children and the exposure of his financial ruin, was forced to confront his actions. We entered a tense negotiation, not with me, but with Emma and Jake taking the lead, their voices surprisingly strong and clear, guided by a new, unwavering sense of truth. They set the terms. David had to enter counseling, address his financial irresponsibility, and, most importantly, be completely honest with them, always. For a trial period of 6 months, they would live with me, to remove any shred of financial excuse for his past behavior, to truly test his commitment to change. I made an extraordinary decision. I told David the first would pay off his entire debt, every single penny, all $150,000, including the stolen retirement funds. The look on his face was one of stunned disbelief, then a flicker of genuine shame. "This isn't a gift, David," I stated, making eye contact. "This is an investment in your children's future, an opportunity for you to truly start over, without the burden of your past mistakes. But you must earn their trust back, and mine." Over the next year, David underwent a transformation I frankly hadn't believed possible. He committed to therapy, delving into the roots of his greed and manipulation. He enrolled in financial literacy courses, learning to manage money responsibly. He worked hard, rebuilding his career with integrity. He showed up for Emma and Jake, not just physically, but emotionally, listening, apologizing, and proving his sincerity day by day. There was one particularly poignant moment when Jake, usually so reserved, broke his wrist playing soccer. David was there immediately, calmly taking him to the emergency room, staying by his side, comforting him, patiently dealing with the practicalities. It was a simple act, but it showed a father present and truly caring, not just self-serving. He moved out of the big, empty house, selling it to pay off the remaining mortgage debt I hadn't covered, and moved into a modest apartment, learning to live within his means. Meanwhile, Emma, Jake, and I built a beautiful, secure, and loving home. With Aunt Rose's inheritance, I bought a charming, spacious house on Maple Street, with a garden Emma loved tending and a room for Jake that he filled with his books and games. We re-established our family unit, not as a replacement for Sarah, but as a continuation of her love and wisdom. Emma flourished, her initial heartbreak giving way to a profound sense of purpose. She chose to study social work at a local university, deliberately foregoing Northwestern, her mother's alma mater, explaining that she wanted to understand and help other families navigate crises to ensure no child ever felt as lost or betrayed as she once had. Jake, once quiet and withdrawn, found his voice, articulating his needs and holding his father accountable when necessary, but always with love. As for me, I found a new purpose beyond just being a grandmother. I accepted a board position at Aunt Rose's foundation, which focused on assisting families devastated by medical crises and elder abuse. It felt right, a way to honor Sarah's memory and Aunt Rose's incredible generosity. My story, once filled with loss and betrayal, became one of resilience, of reclaiming what was lost, not through vengeful destruction, but through strategic rebuilding and an unwavering commitment to truth and love. David, though living separately, became a part of our lives again, a transformed man who had earned a second chance, not from me, but from his children. Our family, though restructured and forever marked by the past, found a new, stronger foundation, built on honesty, earned trust, and the unconditional love that had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. Justice, I learned, isn't about punishment alone. It's about restoring balance, honoring the wronged, and allowing for the possibility of redemption, leading to a peace far deeper than any revenge could ever offer. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.